Hello, everybody. Welcome back as we continue our interview series. This is Mom's Movement and Mindset, How to Break Through Resistance and Transform Your Body and Mind. I'm your host, Don Fisher. Today I'm speaking with a guest who I have not had the pleasure of speaking with before. Super excited. She's so well versed in what we're going to be speaking on today. This is Levantay. She is a USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling author and a professor. I love this professor and entrepreneur who helps teachers and professionals identify and leverage their unique gifts, knowledge, and experience into premium programs and services so they can help others while enjoying more income, impact, and freedom. She is also an equity and inclusion specialist in higher education. Beyond the classroom, Levantay is a Renaissance woman, military spouse, mother, and singer who likes to write music and poetry in her spare time. Hi, Levantay. How are you?
Hi everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. You got an awesome resume there, so I'm super excited to hear what you have to say today. We'll just jump right in. So, with the first question today, if you could, given your experience and the people that you have worked with, maybe even in your classroom, just define kind of like what resistance is to you and provide some examples of resistance that you've witnessed from clients or potential clients during your career.
So, whenever you try to change your life for the better, and I know people can relate to this, whenever you're trying to change your life for the better, shift out of your comfort zone, do something new, you are going to be challenged. And challenges, we use the word resistance, challenges, the same thing. They will show up whenever we're trying to change our lives because challenges are necessary for performance to be optimal. But what you find is that they're like a rubber band, right? So the resistance, right? We talk about resistance is the same thing like a rubber band being stretched. The thing is, it stretches you to your best, but then it can stretch you too far, and there's the risk of breaking or snapping. And so when I look at resistance, I have this technique that I use with my students. I developed it for historically marginalized students because I realized that the ideologies like growth, fixed mindset, and grit were falling short for those students because it was only taking into consideration their personal attributes and not considering the environment. And so over the last 10 years, I've been doing research on what happens in the brain when we face challenges. And I realized that there are three pathways that challenges go down, and what I call them challenge personalities. There are three challenge personalities that show up in us, and being aware of this helps us to master it. There's a champion, there's a saboteur, and the ambivalent. And you want to be aware of what's happening so you can shift into your champion. The saboteur, of course, you're sabotaging yourself. The ambivalent, you're pulling from both sides. So you're probably showing up with that imposter syndrome, self-doubt, and all that stuff. And that's where most high achievers are, the imposter syndrome, right? I know I can do it. I want to do it. And then who am I to do this? Right. And so those are the three things that happen. And being aware of this in my training with my students, I show them how to shift with the 7 laws of consistent success into the champion outlook for them to overcome the challenge. So I've done a lot of work with the resistance, challenges, obstacles, whatever that is, because it's necessary for success.
That is so interesting. You're the first speaker to put it that way, like those three different categories. I can definitely
Yeah,
see
that's because
every
it's
one of those in my own life.
yeah, that's because it's over 10 years
That
of research and um, working with a PhD student in Scotland and working with thousands of students and people, clients too.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you definitely have that experience. That's incredible. So if somebody is dying, to change, kind of like you said before, maybe this would probably maybe fall into like the imposter part of that phase. They want nothing more than to change. Why would they experience resistance? What pulls them away from that if they want to change?
What a great question. No one is intentionally sabotaging themselves. I don't know anyone who would do that. Do you? No.
No.
And I'm sure the people listening are like, heck no, I would not sabotage myself. But there is the unconscious cognition going on there. And the ambivalent, or what results in the imposter syndrome, follows that unconscious pathway in the brain where we are processing, storing memories, and using those triggers in our lives without being consciously aware of it. And this is why we end up sabotaging ourselves without trying to do it. Because listen, we have, and I'm sure you know this, we have the conscious and the subconscious, and the subconscious is like a supercomputer that's always working. It's stored our memories since we were little, or emotional memories. It's developed mechanisms to respond to things that we don't even know, right? And so the subconscious is always trying to protect us, to take care of us, to keep us safe. Now, safety is probably the opposite of being really successful, because you have to take risks, but that part of your psyche is protecting you. So you have to become aware, and it takes time. And I don't know if I could do a little exercise with your folks right now.
Go ahead. I would love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I know we're in this virtual space. People might be driving and doing stuff. So if you're driving, please don't do this. But if you're in a quiet space and you can close your eyes for a minute, I want you to close your eyes. And if you can stand up, you don't need to stand up, Don. I want you to
I'm gonna close
plant.
my eyes.
Yeah. I want you to plant your feet firmly on the ground. Close your eyes, and I want you to take 3 deep breaths with me. Okay. Inward breath. In your own pace. And I want you now to see the thoughts that you're having in your mind, okay? What thoughts are popping up for you? And now I want you to open your eyes. And I have a question for you. Were you able to see your thoughts? Were you able to hear your thoughts, be aware of them? And you'll answer that on your own, right? So this is an exercise that helps us to recognize the subconscious, because a lot of the times we think we are our thoughts. As human beings, it's very difficult to separate from that. But when you do an exercise like that, and some of you might have a million thoughts in your head, you're like, they're just flying around. And the very, very highly conscious ones of us will have no thoughts, right? But when you do this exercise, you become aware that you are not your thoughts, but you are instead the observer of your thoughts. And therefore, as the observer of your thoughts, you have the power to say, shut up, get out, I like you, I don't like you, I can use you, you're limiting me, right? And when you get to that space, that is where you kind of cut off a lot of that unconscious stuff, and you start to consciously create your reality. And I don't want to get into woo woo, but it's science, right? It's science.
Yeah, I mean, it also, it sounds, or it seems empowering, like being able, the fact that that's in our control. One, being able to shift conscious into the conscious, to make that,
Mhm.
aware, or bring this to what's going on.
Yeah, and it's very simple.
Okay, so next question, and probably just building off of what you were even just some other or tips of what's able to do to over that moment, right? That moment of resistance, that anxiety that they're saying to work through, not run from it, but work through it and continue on.
Yeah, I think we have to realize that this is a necessary part of the journey. So if you're trying to fight it, you're going to be in a fight forever, right? And there's this law of least resistance, and it's a part of my 7 laws of consistent success. And the law of least resistance means that you will look at your resistance, try to see why you're resisting it, and maybe just from understanding, not quit, not anything, but surrender to the understanding of why it's happening. For example, if there's procrastination showing up and you have a huge project, but you are deep down scared that you have the ability to fulfill the project, maybe the procrastination is your way to self sabotage so you don't fulfill it, so you fulfill your own prophecy that you can't do it, right? Those are very deep things. But if you're in procrastination and you're like, oh, let me just go clean a toilet or go do wash clothes because I want to stay away from doing this very important thing for me, you are going to stay in that space. You're never going to become aware. So understand that is a natural part of life, and being able to realize when you're being triggered to the negative responses. Yeah.
That's awesome because I can like, you talk activities, right? There's the act that'll kind of like move the needle forward in our life, right? It's about the and how often I will go into busy work as a way of avoid, to like not needs to be done, but
Yeah.
somehow I'm getting some sort of payoff though, right?
Yeah. And you think you're doing something because you're like, oh, I'm
So
just doing research to move this forward. But you've done the research, right? You trick yourself into thinking you're doing something that's moving you forward when it's not.
no, that's awesome. So we're kind of awareness now, not kind of, we're at awareness. We're seeing the unconscious into the conscious, trying to take steps forward here.
Mhm.
So when it comes to you with clients, um, helping them to shift out of their experiencing the resistance and they're hesitant to commit. What's like something like a quick, just right then, very quick to help them move forward? Not so much, I guess,
Mhm.
like a process. I don't know if you have something that can
Yeah.
very bring some soothing or comfort like right away.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the thing that holds us back is not knowing why we're doing what we're doing, not knowing how this thing is aligned to your greater evolution. And although this is a lifelong process, I feel like if you start thinking about what's the bigger picture here, sometimes we get caught up in the mundane, the small things, because everything takes a process. So there's the what, there's the how, then there's the why, and we get caught up in the how of doing it and forget that there's this big thing or this whatever we're working for. So if we can think about whatever it is that we need to get to, then we can actually keep ourselves accountable and moving in the small spaces and in the mundane. But one of the most important things, I'd say two things. Try to stay in the moment. Don't let future thinking or past thinking give you anxiety, because that's going to hold you back, because neither of those things are real. All you have is this moment. So I would say try some mindfulness practices like staying in the moment. Maybe do some free writing to get those thoughts out of your head that you are afraid to talk about. And also, one of the things I do with my clients and my students that they find very useful is to keep a celebration jar. And if I were home right now, I would grab my celebration jar. It's a little mason jar where I write down my small wins, not my big wins, because I'm one of those people who I don't think it's important if it's not this big thing. And I used to be very hard on myself. So this is how I train myself to kind of see small things. And those small things keep you in momentum and it elicits gratitude. And gratitude is so powerful. So I keep a celebration jar, all my small wins, I write them down. And every month or every 2 months, sometimes I let more time pass by, but I pick my jar up and I read my stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that was great. And I celebrate myself. So start celebrating yourself, start staying in the moment, and try to make sure that you're aligned. You know where you're going so that you can stay focused.
So the one thing that you touched on there in the beginning of that, you started talking about like the who, the what, the how,
Mhm.
um, and I feel like a lot of people do focus a lot of time on that. Would you say that the why, like somebody's why, is going to be like their driving force essentially, is going to be important or something that they should like connect to when it comes to making change?
Yes, I think it is super important to connect to that why. But a lot of people spend their lives going in different directions because they don't think about this stuff. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talk about law of attraction, especially since The Secret came out, and there's this, oh, you just have to be magnetic for it to come to you. A lot of people attract things that don't belong to them, and you find that it soon falls away, especially in the work that we do. And this is my passion place. This is where I help people to find those inner gifts and turn that into the work that they love to do, that impacts others and brings them back the kind of value and income that makes them have the life that they love, right? Because a lot of people, we start from the outside. Alignment means you start from the inside. It is not a law of attraction, because when you attract things that don't belong to you, they're going to fall away. You've seen people get really, really rich and lose it all. Law of attraction. Law of alignment is superior to law of attraction, in that when you are aligned and you attract, it is yours and it cannot fall away from you. And this takes practice, but it's not hard, and it's what we're made to do.
So it kind of sounds like, from the way you explain that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like in that sense, maybe people try and fill up some internal void with like an external stimulus, and you're
Mhm.
shifting it like the other way around, like
Mhm.
kind of, hey, focus on where, like, what you want to be inside,
Mhm.
and then allow what's yours to come
Mhm.
to you. I mean, again, I don't want to phrase that in the
Yeah,
wrong way, but
you got it. You got it. And of course, it comes to you, but you got to work for it too, right? But the work
of
is
course.
yours because you'll be so clear. For me, I know exactly what to say no to. I'm multi-passionate, so of course I struggled with how do all these things converge? And convergence is very important for me. Everything converged in my voice and my expression. So I started out writing poetry when I was 8 years old. I grew up in Jamaica. My mom and my dad were farmers. They left when I was around 8 to come to America because farming wasn't working. Globalization was happening back in the 90s, and they needed to provide for us. And so, because I was 8, no one told me why they left. My sister came home, took care of me. She was the best mom and dad I could ever ask for. My mom and dad called every 3 months. We didn't have a phone. We had to walk 3 miles to talk to them on a friend's phone. But no one told me why they left. So as a child, I felt like I couldn't ask. But what I found was whenever I did well in school, passed exams, they would be so excited. So I became that high achieving perfectionist. And it helped me and worked for me for a very long time. But then it led me down paths that did not belong to me. So finding out and going back, and that takes work because it's more than 10,000 hours of practice for me, and coaching certifications and studying and helping others for me to find out my issue. But when you find the place where all your issues converge, everything converge in my voice. When my parents left, I lost my voice. I found my voice again when they were celebrating me. Then I lost my voice again when I started my corporate job when I wasn't supposed to be there. And my body was telling me that I wasn't listening to my body and to my life. So all the different things that I do, poetry, singing, teaching, writing, converge in my voice. And so that's my place. And I think that if you really do the work or get some coaching to do the work, it'll change your life.
So if you show up, your authentic self, right? Everything you believe to be true in your heart, everything that is to be yours is going to be yours, and it's not going to fall away.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, I don't know if you've read The Alchemist, but when the author says, the universe will rise up to meet you when you start on the path. And if that's your path, it'll rise up to meet you. Whatever you believe in, God, I call God, I say God, if people say the universe, cosmic power, whatever. But that's a natural law. If it's yours, it will not fall away.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that too. But again, it's easier said than done, right? It
Hmm.
requires that action. But this first step of like, hey, I'm faced with a choice. Like, I'm uncomfortable, I'm fearful, I'm feeling anxiety. I can go one of two ways. So
Hmm.
the last question I have for you here today, Levante, is, can you speak on a little bit about how, if somebody is able to, right, they get the awareness and now they work
Hmm.
through that discomfort or that resistance, how does that help them to develop resilience, right? So that they
Hmm.
can become stronger and ultimately face larger and larger challenges down the road.
So resistance is necessary for resilience. And you're always going to need, like when you're lifting weights, you either up your reps or up your weights, right? Because you're always trying to to maintain and to grow. And that's the same thing with life. You're gonna have to up your reps or up your rates, your weights, because you're gonna face this stuff. And the thing is, when you're in that moment, like you said before you asked the question, when you're in that moment of anxiety and you're like, oh, which way do I go? Don't fight it. It's least resistance. It is a part of your life. God, Stephen Pressfield, if you The War of Art, I believe is his book. Wonderful, beautiful. And if you don't want to read, go watch his talk with Oprah. He's great in this area. Resistant. Oh, yes, 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 yes. You've got it. Right next to you too. I don't know where I would find mine, but yes, wonderful, beautiful. It is the truth. And I think that the key is to practice that law of least resistance and to settle into it and to know that it is naturally a part of it. And now you're going to step through it. And that's your place. That's your position to step through it. Up those reps, up the weights, and let's go.
So yeah, so maybe just last thing just to touch on here, just 'cause this just kind of triggered a thought. That to me, what I kind of take from that is like noticing versus like judgment. Like, hey,
Yes.
if something happens to me, it's like, hey, it's happening, it's real, but I don't need to judge it, right? Like you kind of you
Mhm.
were getting at, like I can accept it and then take my step.
Yes, we make so many judgments, and those judgments actually lead to those limiting beliefs that program our lives, and we don't even know. So, another favorite book of mine is The Four Agreements. And one of the agreements is like, take nothing personal. There's nothing that's personal. And so don't judge it. It's not coming against you because it's against you. If you check the other person and the other person, they have the same thing. So it's not special to you. I know you're special, but in this sense, you're not special. You know why? Because you're going to face resistance. And the more power you have within you, the more resistance you are going to face. And that's what it is. So there's no other way to say it. I could cookie cutter it, but I'm not that type.
No, I mean, Levante, this has been great. You've been so just open and transparent and straight to the point. I absolutely love that. Again, everybody watching at home, this is Levante. I'm your host, Don Fisher. This is Mom's Movement and Mindset, how to break through resistance and transform your body and mind. I hope everyone was able to take away what Levante was putting down today because she brought it and she was straight to the point. Levante, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Don. Thank you to everyone listening. All the best.